the latest dose of bipolar recorder. This podcast may cause dizziness and blurred vision. Enjoy.
There I was, working at a 3-compartment utility sink in the back room of a well-known national grocery chain. My elbows were submerged in the dirty water as I washed chicken blood off of various pots and pans. The chicken job. That's what I'd been calling it for the last few months. It was late, almost 10 o'clock at night. I'd been there all fucking day, slicing meat, frying food, serving the slack-jawed locals of Roanoke, Virginia, and trying not to storm out the door. About 10 months earlier, I'd made the bold and righteous decision to leave my bougie career as a corporate recruiter. For the previous decade of my life, I'd established myself as a valuable asset to the military-industrial complex, hiring people to fuel the war machine. Ever since the COVID lockdowns, my white-collar overlords had paid me handsomely to work from my home office and respond to the occasional email or phone call while smoking weed all day. The parasitic nature of my role in society wasn't lost on me. The guilt of knowing that I was making good money doing something that contributed basically nothing to anyone aside from Uncle Sam kept me up at night. Was this all there was to life? Surely I could be utilizing my time in a way that was better for my karmic balance. One day in early spring of 2024, I was watching an interview with RFK Jr., and he began discussing a particular federal agency that I thought I was already familiar with. In fact, I had been hiring people for the agency on a daily basis for something like 3 years. What caught my attention was when Bobby Kennedy began saying that the agency was actually a massive money laundering front for the CIA. The CIA? That's where I drew the line. Why, the CIA was one of the key entities that I believed was surveilling me years earlier during an acute manic episode that I went on to write 2 entire memoirs about. To think that I'd been unwittingly aiding such a corrupt organization sent shockwaves through my soul. So I left the world of recruiting for federal contractors and embarked on my own path. I spent the summer and autumn of 2024 developing and promoting my mental health advocacy work. I went to Penn State University and gave presentations to students of psychology. I went to Alex Gray's Chapel of Sacred Mirrors and handed out copies of my books to students of psychedelics. But eventually I hit a wall and I found myself running out of ideas. My finances were in dire straits and my independent activist notoriety that had been gaining momentum was mysteriously waning. I'd wake up in the early hours of the morning racked with anxiety and dread. Had leaving the comfort and security of corporate America been a mistake? A mountain of bills had been piling up while I was traveling the land, spreading awareness about mental illness. Sometime around Halloween season, I began drinking again. I told myself that as long as I avoided hard liquor and stuck to beer, I'd probably be fine. But numbing myself out with booze wasn't helping my wallet, and I urgently needed some semblance of steady income to keep a roof over my head. That's how I ended up at the chicken job. I saw a now hiring sign posted out front of a grocery store in Roanoke that I frequently shopped at. They needed additional help in their deli department. I walked in and spoke with a manager, and the next thing I knew, I was equipped with an apron and some disposable gloves, making just a couple of dollars above minimum wage. Throughout the winter, I learned the ways of the chicken job. I wouldn't say it was fun, but at times it was refreshingly blue-collar. My coworkers and I became friends, and we'd joke around when we weren't preparing food for the rude, obnoxious customers we so deeply resented. I'd often reflect on how it felt strangely fulfilling to work a job that involved tangible skills and physical effort. I'd pull heavy boxes of dismembered chicken out of the walk-in refrigerator and empty them into a large plastic tub where I then meticulously breaded them with seasoned flour and subsequently placed them on metal trays that I plunged into a deep fryer. So many pieces of chicken. So many hours. I worked long shifts. Each night on my way home, I'd stop by a gas station near my neighborhood and buy a 12-pack of cheap domestic beer, usually Pabst Blue Ribbon or Busch Ice. Once I got back to my house, I'd lay on my couch and consume them one by one. Drinking alcohol hadn't been part of my lifestyle for many years, but I found reintegrating it into my daily routine came quite naturally. I drank every night of the week, and on my days off, I'd often start drinking first thing in the morning. That winter was a strange time for me. I was approaching the age of 32 and working in a menial entry-level position. Some of my distinguished chicken job colleagues were still in high school. Interestingly, the predicament I was in felt much less dark than it probably should have. When I was drinking in my early 20s, I'd often become suicidal and reckless, but this era of aimless drunkenness was kind of fun and relaxing. It actually surprised me that my habitual binge drinking wasn't triggering a severe manic episode. I was still taking my usual psychiatric medications, which it's worth mentioning you're not supposed to combine with alcohol. However, so far, nothing overtly terrible occurred aside from morning nausea. But toward the end of the winter, I began feeling the repercussions of my degeneracy. One day I weighed myself on my bathroom scale and realized I had gained nearly 30 pounds since starting the chicken job. I was the heaviest I'd ever been in my life. Even worse, I was starting to vomit blood on some mornings, which was freaky and unsettling. I had been on hiatus from mental health outreach for quite some time. I didn't want to be hosting online peer support groups or holding real-world public speaking events when I was engaged with problematic alcohol use. Occasionally, I tried recording some podcast installments, but didn't release any of them because they were boozy, ranty, and low quality. Some of my followers were beginning to wonder where I'd been since October. It was troubling to me that I'd been neglecting my independent advocacy work, which had been a major aspect of my life for at least the last 5 years. I began reaching out to sober friends who could offer support and guidance. Most of them suggested going to AA meetings, which was something I couldn't see myself getting involved with again. One thing I did know was that I needed a change from the chicken job. I needed something that involved more responsibility and would allow me to better utilize my education and professional background. This, I thought, would be the change in pace I needed to mentally recalibrate and get back on track. I began sending out employment applications for social services-oriented professional jobs in southwestern Virginia. In February of 2025, I finally started receiving responses from employers and successfully participated in a number of interviews. Ultimately, I received multiple job offers and accepted one for a case management position that seemed like it involved a good mix of my social services experience, recruiting experience, and passion for mental health. Thus, I put in my 2 weeks' notice at the chicken job and began the next step in wherever my life is now headed. For the first few weeks at the new job, I was able to cut back on my alcohol use, but still drank excessively in the evenings. But in mid-April, right after my 32nd birthday, I officially stopped drinking and have remained sober completely, including from marijuana and other substances, since then. I'm still early on in my second recovery journey. At the time of this recording, it's only been a few weeks. The first journey lasted about 7 years until I began to lapse and eventually fully relapse. So I'm taking my second sober stint a day at a time and putting mindful work into maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Many of you who follow me on the Twitter, now X, platform have seen my posts lately about hiking and rucking. This has become a routine part of my new schedule. I go hiking in the Blue Ridge Mountains at least 3 or 4 times a week. Living in Roanoke, Virginia gives me the luxury of being able to do that. I take a weighted backpack with me to add to the challenge, and it's a great cardio and strength conditioning exercise. I'm also in the process of slowly improving my diet. Removing hundreds of daily calories of alcohol from it was a great first step. In the last 3 weeks, I've lost about 10 pounds. I've been tracking my progress on a Garmin sports watch, which provides interesting data, for example, heart rate, sleep cycles, physical exertion levels, and it serves as a great motivational tool. My new case management job has come with a variety of its own challenges, but is a huge step up from the chicken job, and I'm hopeful that it leads to greater things. In fact, I dare say it will lead to greater things. When it comes to mental health outreach and activism, I've been back on the Twitter/X Spaces audio chat scene on my @BipolarRecorder account and am hosting regular peer support discussions. I may also have some new presentations at Penn State coming up later this summer. Speaking of which, my approach to mental health advocacy has always been unique and somewhat divisive. To date, the Bipolar Recorder Project is not affiliated with mainstream groups, pharmaceutical companies, traditional sponsorships, or anything else of that nature. The following I've established has been through word of mouth and cool people naturally gravitating toward and resonating with my ideas. My stances on the complex issues related to living with bipolar disorder and other serious mental illnesses are always raw and unfiltered. I try to speak from the heart and give it to you straight. Sometimes this has led to me being described as promoting anti-psychiatry messaging, but I consider my positions on all things related to discussing mental illness as being fairly grounded, realistic, informed, and balanced. To support this independent effort, please consider purchasing a copy of my latest memoir, Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, which was released a couple of months ago and is available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover formats on Amazon.com. If you read Happy Valleys and enjoy it, please remember to leave a quick review on Amazon. This helps me move up in the algorithms and get increased visibility on my work. Again, that's Happy Valleys, A Bipolar Journey, written by me, Hunter Keegan. There are also fundraiser stickers and other merch available on the official Bipolar Recorder website, www.bipolarrecorder.com. Each purchase helps me continue to fund my independent activism and keep this endeavor sustainable. I can't do it on my own, and I'd like to thank everyone who continues to support my work. One of the reasons I'm currently raising funds is because I've received a large number of requests to record an audiobook version of Happy Valleys, and to do so, I need to purchase some new studio equipment. So if you're one of the people yearning for an audio version of Happy Valleys, definitely throw a few dollars my way. Books, stickers, poetry cards, all available on bipolarrecorder.com. My name is Hunter Keegan. This has been the long overdue 60th installment of the official Bipolar Recorder podcast. See my full portfolio of mental health advocacy work at bipolarrecorder.com and reach out to me on social media, Twitter/X, Instagram, Mastodon, etc., at Bipolar Recorder. For those of you who aren't on social media, I can also be directly contacted via email at hunterhkeegan@gmail.com. Have a lovely day, evening, or night, wherever you are. Bipolar Recorder is a listener-supported show. To help keep the show running, consider checking out our Patreon page or visiting bipolarrecorder.com.
Unless otherwise stated, the hosts and guests on Bipolar Recorder are not licensed mental health professionals. Bipolar Recorder is not a substitute for therapy or professional medical intervention. If you are having a mental health crisis, please contact your local emergency services.